So I've been working on this techno track. It's a little work in progress. I'm quite happy with the vibe that's coming out, but imagine that I'm out of time to work on this anymore today. I've got responsibilities. It's a certain time. I gotta move on. And what I think a lot of beginners would do is just X out of the project, close it down, and then maybe never open it again. Yeah. So I want to propose to you 3 skills. 3 very basic beginner skills that I want you to have from the very beginning as you're starting your music production journey, because they're really good habits that are going to serve you well in the long run. Okay, it's like muscle memory, building up good habits from the beginning. 3 habits that if you're in this situation, I want you to be able to do flawlessly, easily with like no brain power, right? Skill number 1 is the sketch arrangement. A sketch arrangement is just a very basic arrangement so that the musical ideas open up over a little bit of time, so that when you're listening back to your own music, you don't get bored instantly because it's simply a repetitive loop. And a sketch arrangement is very simple. It's a 5-part arrangement where you just copy your timeline 4 times, so you have 5 copies of the exact same loop. Let me do that here. I do Command-Shift-D to duplicate time. That's different than just duplicating. In this situation, it has the same effect, but it means that everything above and below also gets copied. And so I do that 4 times, and I hit Shift-W so that this expands the width of my timeline so that I can see everything on it. And as you can see, we've got 5 sections here. I'm just going to add 5 locators for clarity. And the idea of a sketch arrangement is that on the 4th one, your entire loop is playing. On the 1st one, only a little bit of your loop is playing. So strip it down to whatever the minimal set of elements is that you might want to have playing at the start of the track. Maybe let's take away some of the hi-hats. Whatever the minimal amount of elements is that you can get away with to start a track. Then for the 2nd loop, you're going to add in some of the elements. And then for the 3rd iteration, you're going to remove the kick drum to create some amount of tension. Maybe I'm going to remove all of these percussions and maybe this percussion as well. So this is like a little break and a drop, right? So it goes cool. And let's let it drop into number 4. Cool. And then the last one is an outro. And so what does that mean for us? Well, it just means that we're going to do a little bit less again. Maybe let's take away the kick again. Yeah, that's it. Boom. Sketch arrangement. Now, as you noticed, I'm working on a 4-bar loop, so each of my sections is really short. They're only like 6 or 7 seconds long. I would honestly recommend maybe making your sections at least 8 bars long. So in my case, it's very easy to do. I can just select this time and do Command-Shift-D again, which duplicates time. And so that just makes that thing twice as long. Duplicate time. Maybe the break I'll leave the same length. Duplicate time. Duplicate time. So I've got my little sketch arrangement. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, and Chapter 5. Sketch arrangement. Done. Let's listen to it from start to finish. Intro. Give you enough time to reflect a bit on the elements, find yourself. Story starts to unfold. The elements are welcome. Very simple. Now we have a little bit of a break. The story goes somewhere else. Now everything's playing. Actually, I just noticed that my chapter 2 and 4 are identical. Maybe let's remove a few things for chapter 2 so that chapter 4 feels a little busier and more impressive. There was a ride that I had muted, so let's make sure that we add that ride there. There you go. My little sketch arrangement is already teaching me things about how my elements relate to each other. So if I listen from here, this is chapter 2. It's got more space between elements. You're going to want to make that transition a little smoother here. That's fine. Nice. And now it's a real explosion of energy here. That's lovely. Okay. Now the objective of the sketch arrangement is simple, right? It's only to allow us to think about our elements like in an interesting way for about a minute. Because if this was literally a 6-second loop, I would not be able to listen to it while cycling to work or, listening to it on the bus or whatever, because it would just not be interesting enough. But a sketch arrangement is interesting enough. And this is not a finished composition, but it is something that has some movement and a little bit of storytelling inside of it. It invites us to think about push-pull, having a little bit of tension and release. So this is a good habit to have. And it also gets you in the mindset of like already doing some transitions and thinking like, oh yeah, okay. I felt like when the energy went from here to here, I felt it was a little bit too drastic. Like the change was a little bit too dramatic. So what would I need to change to make that transition a bit smoother? There's solutions to that, but that's not for today. Now, skill number 2 is to go to your master channel, which should be empty probably, and to use a limiter to eat up your headroom. When you're composing, your master fader might look like this. It might be pumping away over here, but then it's nowhere near the zero, near the maximum, right? And when you're going to be listening to your music outside of the studio, a lot of commercial listening situations, they, like in your earbuds or whatever, they kind of expect your music to spend quite a lot of time close to the 0 point at peak volume, right? And so you've got all this headroom. And on a professionally mastered track, you'll have very little headroom left. And so you just want to bring up your volume so that it's kind of near there. This is not about trying to get the maximum loudness out of things or something. We're just trying to make sure that our volumes aren't hanging around near minus 18 decibels or something. But you want your peak volumes to be closer to 0 decibels. And for that, we're going to use a limiter. But the limiter, we don't really want it to be working a whole bunch. We don't really want it to be doing a lot of gain reduction. We just want it to be sort of capturing the odd peak. So we're going to increase the input as things are going into the limiter. Whoa, way too much. We want it to just every now and then tickle the limiter. We're not trying to really use the limiter as a way of sort of properly compressing the sound, which sometimes that's a legitimate use for a limiter. But right now, for today, all we're trying to do is a real simple export of this musical idea, right? And so we just want to use the limiter to eat up our headroom. And now look on the master, we're peaking very close to 0 decibels, in fact at minus 0.3, which is perfect. And so this is not going to sound way quieter than a professional track. Probably still a bit quieter, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. Put a limiter on there, eat up the available headroom, bring your volume close to 0. And then skill number 3 is to actually render your track as a WAV file, right? I think a lot of beginner producers hesitate and don't do this. And so I want to insist, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be making a loop brace around your composition. So Command L to make a loop brace. That means that everything inside of this loop is going to get rendered. One thing to pay attention to is that the very first bit of audio is going to immediately be a kick drum, which is a bit intense. And the very last bit of audio is going to be the end of a loop here. It's not going to have a natural tail down like most acoustic sounds would naturally tail out, right? As a little bit of a little bit more professional way of doing this would be to select any amount of time and do Command I, which is inserting some silence beforehand. And so you can set your loop brace a little bit before. Now I have to hold down Command so that it doesn't snap to the grid. So just this. The fact of hitting play and having a fraction of a second of silence before the first sound, it just feels better when you're consuming your own music later. I do Shift W again to go to the width. And here at the end, I do a similar exercise where I take the end of the loop brace and I set it somewhere where I believe that acoustically all these sounds will have tailed down to 0. Now, of course, I am actually pretty brutally using loops, so it probably is just going to end there. But let me listen to that. Yeah, it's a bit dramatic, but usually I'll have a little bit of maybe some reverb or delay that tails off naturally here at the end. Or you know what? Maybe I'll just automate a little bit of reverb. That's already something. You know what? And I'll automate it on this little dub chord as well. Hop. So that there's a little bit of reverb. Oh, immediately it restarts. Let's go back there. So did you notice that it hadn't even tailed out quite yet? So let's find the moment when it tails out. Stop. There. For me, that was the place. So at 42.2, that's when everything had tailed off naturally. So now when I look at my composition, I see I've got my loop raised a little bit before. So there's a little bit of silence before and a little bit of silence afterwards. And that's going to put some listening people in the mindset that this is a real track. This is a real piece of composition. And it's a subtle indicator, but it's an important indicator. And so you do Command-Shift-R, which is rendering. You just do a little sanity check to say, okay, does this look approximately right? Does it start at the right place? Is it about the right length? Seems about right to me. So we export, and then I want you to export it to a scrapbook folder. I want you to have a folder where you can put works in progress. For example, in this folder, I might do 2026 and give it a little title, 3 skills video, hup. And so the idea is that when you go through your scrapbook folder, you could just see chronologically all your previous work. Here's a scrapbook folder from a few years ago. So now, because I had the discipline of actually rendering all these files, when I actually go in here and re-listen to them, I can reconnect with what I was thinking in that phase and listen to my own musical propositions in a way that I would never go into those old Ableton files and open them up again, because that's just way too much friction in my world. But all these, the WAVs or MP3s, I could easily spend some time listening to a bunch of them, flicking through them, and maybe even get motivated to take this idea further and develop on it. So that you can be like, yeah, I've been working on this techno track. The beat is kind of nice. I like it.